Okay, so welcome back. All right, so what we're going to do today is we have one more section, and it's 13.2, and in the textbook it's called Business Applications of Integrals or something like that. I'm just going to take two of the concepts in this one section. There's other concepts in it, but we're just going to stick with two of them. And the two that I'm gonna go over is called producer surplus and consumer surplus. So those are terms that if you have taken micro or macroeconomics, or if you're in it right now, or if you're gonna take it, you will have heard those two terms. So you may have already learned about it, but now what we're going to do is we're going to look at it from the math perspective. Like, how do they come up with these consumer surplus and producer surplus ideas? So let me share my screen. Why is it not sharing? There we go. There we go. Okay. Got to click the button. Okay, so like I said, this is the last two concepts of the whole class. So you guys can kind of relax a little, breathe a little, and then all next week, we're going to do review. So the review, I already have it up so you can take a look at it. And you guys have a review in your My Math Lab. And so the review will give you a really good idea of what's going to be on the test. But what I did, this is the final exam prep. So I broke it up by chapter because each chapter we had a test. So we'll go over chapter 9, we'll go over chapter 10, we'll go over chapter 11, and then 12 and 13, we'll just kind of hit it just briefly. And the chapter 12 and 13, what I did is I separated it in the final. So it's not embedded in the final. It's just a separate section. And I believe there's 5 to 7 questions just on chapter 12 and 13, just to give you, so that you can answer questions on these last 4 parts. But start, and these final exam preps, these are in your Canvas class. If they aren't, I will put them in today so that you have them. And I would strongly suggest that you start ASAP on the homework in My Math Lab. So the last homework is homework 21, and that's the review for the final, and it's unlimited access. So that means you can go and come as often as you want. And you can, keep hitting similar exercises until you feel real comfortable with the material. And then before I forget, don't forget the end of course survey that was sent out to you the last 2 Mondays. And then the link will be sent again this Monday. So it comes to your student email. And that will give you, if you do it, that will give you five extra credit points on the final. So it's a real quick, it takes maybe 3 minutes, but it's an end of course survey. It allows me to find out what worked, what didn't work, what you would like to see me do better, or what you felt like helped in the class. So please fill that out. I take it very seriously. And every semester I try to look at it and make some changes to improve the class. So that will come out. It closes, that end of course survey closes Sunday, May 5th. So I don't see the results until after grades have already been posted and everything's put in the grade book. So it doesn't affect anything as far, but they send me a list of who took it. So make sure you do that. Okay, so consumers and producer surplus. So the idea behind this is consumer surplus is what I call a marketing tool. And so consumer surplus is something that makes consumers happy. Okay, so you have to think about it. What would make you happy? So if I am willing to pay more for a product, but I don't have to, that makes me happy. Okay, so that's what a consumer surplus is. That means that it's a non-tangible amount of money that me as a business owner, I can use that as a marketing tool and say, hey, look how much money I saved my consumers. Because they were willing to pay more, but they didn't have to. All right, that's what consumer surplus is. Now, the reason why I do the MyMathLab version is because this graph on the left is what is in the textbook, but then MyMathLab has a different version of it. So I wanted to show you the MyMathLab version because this one uses A's and B's down here, and I don't like it. It doesn't make sense to me. So the idea behind consumer surplus is we have a vertical line right here, and this vertical line, they call it P bar, and this is just the price. This price is both for a supply and a demand function. So it's the price supply, and it's also the price demand. So the consumer surplus, let me get my different, I don't want red because red indicates that it's bad. Okay, so we have what's called a, I'll just start up here. It's called the demand equation. Okay, so this is a curve, right? It's a demand. So this is the price when you have a demand. And this right here, this line, this blue line is the price. Okay, then the other one, let me hang on. This is consumer surplus up here. So what that means is we're finding the area under the demand function, but above the price. So remember on Tuesday, we talked about area between two curves, and we had the upper area or the upper curve minus the lower curve. That's what you're going to do. It's the upper curve minus the lower curve. Now, this value down here, the X value, this value right here, and they use, in MyMathLab, they use X bar. This is the number of products. So this whole semester and in 1324, X was always the number of products. In this case, X is the number of products here. And where the number of products hits the demand curve, that's the price. That's the current price. Okay? So what we're doing is we're finding the difference between the demand curve and the price. All right, and that is our function. So the MyMathLab version of the consumer surplus function is, it goes from, so consumer surplus goes from 0 to the number of products, and the function, so the demand function, minus the price. Okay, so you can see this is the same thing. It's just, I don't like the variables because I don't want that to confuse you. I want to know exactly what it is that you're plugging in. Okay, so you have an X, which is the number of products. You have a P, which is the price. And where the price and the number of products meet, it meets on the curve. So what this curve, what this area under the curve indicates is this is the amount of money that a consumer is willing to pay, but doesn't have to. They get to pay this lower price. So I like to use the scenario of my ultimate bucket list is to see George Strait in concert. So I know he's an old school guy, but he's 90s country, and I absolutely love his music. And so I have been looking for years, because he's from Texas, he's from this area. I've been looking for years for somebody who is a family member that says, oh, I'll hook you up with some tickets, because every time he's in concert, so over the summer, he and Chris Stapleton are going to be playing in College Station. And I went, oh, that would be so fun. So I started looking up prices. Well, for me to sit close, which I love that because you get a whole different show than if you sit up in the nosebleed seats. For me to sit up close, it's going to be anywhere between $2,000 to $6,000. And it's like, oh my gosh, I cannot justify paying that much money to see for one night of entertainment. The nosebleed seats are anywhere between $400 to $700 for the nosebleed seats. We're talking the second tier, way up in the nosebleed seats. So basically what you're doing is you're watching the screens the whole night because all you see is this little tiny person down on the stage. So my idea is, you know what? I would be willing, right? I'd be willing to pay, say, $300 for a seat, right? But in a consumer surplus, let's say I could get a ticket for $150. So what this means is I am saving the consumer, saving me $150. So that's what this area under the demand function and above the price, that's what it represents. Now, is it a tangible? Yes, $150. Do they hand me back $150? No, they do not. So it's not a tangible where they give money back to me. It's an idea of people are willing to pay a higher price, but they don't have to. And so it makes the consumer very happy. So it's even like if you go in and you're trying to purchase something and you find out, you know what, I have, $200 for a pair of shoes, but I go in and they're on sale. Well, that difference between what I have in my pocket and willing to pay and what I actually have to pay, that makes me very happy because now I've saved some money. So that's that area under the curve. It's the money that the business owners are saving their consumers. So it makes their consumers very happy. Okay. It's an idea. It is so, and it's the cumulative amount of savings. So I may be willing to pay 300, somebody else may be willing to pay 1,000, but they don't have to. Okay. So it's all of these people along this demand curve and what they're willing to pay, but they end up not having to pay that amount. They're ending up having to pay this lesser amount. Okay. So that idea behind the area between two curves, the upper curve, which is our demand function, minus the lower curve, which is our price. And that's how you're going to find the antiderivative. Okay. So let's try one. So when you look at your word problem, I want you to notice, what do they give you and what do you still need? So in other words, I have a 0 here. That's always going to be 0. I have an X. So that means I need to have the number of products. I have a function and I have a price. So in this example 1, I have a price. I have a function. I don't know what X is. All right. So you have to look at it and go, okay, what is it that I'm missing and how can I find it? So I have the price, I have the function, I don't have the X. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the X. All right. How do I do that? Well, this demand function, the demand function is a price. It means the same thing. So I'm going to plug in the 150 here. So my price is 150 and it equals the demand function. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm finding X. So now I'm just going to go through, solve my equation. So I get negative 150 equals a negative 0.03x. Where's my calculator? Where'd it go? I had it. Oh, there it is. Okay, so 150 divided by 0.03 is 5,000. So my X value is 5,000. Now I have everything I need. I have my 5,000. I have my function, which was 300 minus 0.03x. and I'm going to subtract off my price. Okay, so again, this is just like what we did. We have our top function. This is our top function minus the bottom function. Okay, now we're right back to what we did on Monday. The top function minus the bottom function. So now I'm going to simplify. So 300 minus 150 is 150 minus 0.03x. And this is all in terms of x. Okay, so now I can find my antiderivative. So I have a constant. I'm going to add an x to it. Here, I'm going to add 1 and divide by 2. So I end up with 150x minus, and then 0.03 divided by 2 is 0.015x squared. And then I'm going to evaluate between 0 and 5,000. Okay? So the only new thing is finding what you're missing. And you'll see, we're going to do a couple later where you're missing the price. You're given the X, you got to find the price. Okay, so it depends on what is missing, determines what you have to find first. Okay, so now I'm going to evaluate. So 150 times 5,000 minus 0.015 times 5,000 squared. I'm going to get that value. And then I'm going to plug in 0. And it makes it real nice because when I plug in 0, it just equals 0. So this part right here, I'm only doing this for your benefit. Once you get going with these and you know if I plug in 0 here and here, I'm going to get 0. So this can be eliminated. All right, so here we go. 150 times 5,000 is 750,000. And then 0.015 times 5,000 squared is 375,000. So 750,000 minus 375 is 375,000 minus 0. So that is my consumer surplus. Okay, so again, what that means is it's a cumulative amount of all the people that are willing to pay more than $150, but they don't have to. So they're willing, but they don't need to do it. Okay, so that's that cumulative amount. So why I say this is a marketing tool is, let's say that I own a business and I sell tickets to an event, and I'm selling my tickets for $150 each. All right, knowing that I have consumers that are willing to pay more. So you can look at it from the business perspective of, you know what, I want to bring in as many customers as I can. So I'm going to keep my prices low. So that's from the business owner's perspective. From the consumer's perspective of is, you know what, I'm going to be loyal to this company because they're not being greedy. They know they could get more money for the ticket, but they're thinking about the consumer and saying, you know what, the consumer is the most important. Okay. So any questions on that? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna skip down just to do one more problem with the consumer surplus. And then we'll go and do the producer surplus, because it's a little bit different. Okay. So what am I gonna do with my pen? So find consumer surplus, and these are going to be, these formulas are going to be on a formula sheet for you. It's in the Canvas classroom, the formula sheet. So I would highly recommend that you print that up so that you have it while you're taking your final. Okay, so here we go. So we are looking for, I'm going to write this here. We're looking for consumers. Okay, so here's our consumer surplus function, right? This is our formula. So let's look and see what we have. We have a price level of 8, so we have that. We have a function, we have that. We need the X. All right, so P is the current demand price, X is the current demand quantity. So we are going to find the X first. So the way we do that is our demand function is our price, right? So we're going to go 8 equals 20 minus 0.05x. So we're going to solve for X. So 12 divided by 0.05 is 240. Okay, so I have this value now. So between 0 and 240, the demand function is 20 minus 0.05x, subtracting off the price. So the upper curve minus the lower curve. And now you're right back to what we did on Tuesday. So 20 minus 18. And notice I always do this because it keeps me moving forward, and it also keeps me it makes me focus on, okay, what am I doing, right? What is the process? Because a lot of times if you confuse what your answers mean or what next process is, that's where you get confused, and then you forget, did I find the antiderivative? Did I not? What am I doing? So it kind of keeps, this is like a set of instructions. So all I'm doing now is I'm just simplifying. Okay, now I'm going to find the antiderivative. So the antiderivative, I have a constant, so I'm going to add my x. Here, I'm going to add 1, divide by 2. So I end up with 12x, and then 0.05 divided by 2 is 0.025 x squared. And then I'm going to evaluate between 0 and 240. Okay, so again, zeros go in, I'm going to get 0 out. When I plug 240 in, so 12 times 240 is 2880. 0.025 times 240 squared is 1440. So this is 1440. Okay, so what this means is the consumer surplus is $1,440 when I sell the price, when the price level is $8 and I'm selling 240 products. Okay, so that's how much money, me as a business owner, how much I'm saving my consumers as a whole, right? It's all the people added up together. Okay, so that's consumer surplus. Everyone good? All right, so now producer surplus. So producer surplus, you can look at it like profit, right? So the idea, let me go back up here. The idea behind producer surplus, I'm going to do this in a different color, green, is you have a supply function. Okay, so this is, it needs to line up. There we go. Okay, so the supply function means this is the price based on the supply. All right, so if you have a high supply, then your price is going to go down. If you have a high demand, your price is going to go up. Where these two meet, where the demand and the supply meet, this is called an equilibrium. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, equilibrium point.
Yes. It's an equilibrium price. So that equilibrium, and that this is going to be important because you're going to have one on My Math Lab where it's going to ask you to find the equilibrium price. The equilibrium price is when the supply and the demand are equal. That's where they meet, right? That's this intersection is right here. So it's where the supply and the supply and the demand are equal. Okay, that's your equilibrium. So down here is the producer surplus. So the idea behind the producer surplus is the upper curve is the price, the lower curve is the supply function. So it's going to be the price minus the supply. So what you have down here is you have a company who is willing to use this price, this upper price, right? But they're selling it. So people want to buy it at a lower price, this supply curve, but they're actually paying $150 for it. Okay, so the producer surplus makes the producer happy. It makes the business owner happy because this is money that they are getting over and above what the price is. Okay, that's the people want to pay more, but they're willing to pay the 150. They're willing to pay the upper level. Okay, so this is more tangible because this is actual money. This is like profit. So the producer surplus is like profit. It's money that the producer gets, the business owner gets, because people are willing to pay more, even though they wish they could pay less. Okay, so the function behind that is, and that's why I wanted to give you that visual. So this visual right here, so this is the price, is the upper. So it's the price minus the supply function, okay? Because it's the upper minus the lower, and it's all the area in between, okay? So it's still area between two curves. It's just now we're looking at it from the price is the high point and the curve is the low point. Okay, so again, look and see what they give you. They give you the price, so we got that. They give you the function, they got that. What we need is the X on this one. And we're going to do a couple where we're flip-flopping. So that's why I'm identifying what parts do we have and what do we need to find. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the number of products. So my price is 49. My function is that. Okay, so this is one of those types of problems where you're going to see it and go, oh, I got to use quadratic formula, right? It's got to x squared. So I'm going to set this to 0. So I'm going to bring my 49 over. So I'm going to rewrite this in descending order. Okay, so here is my function. All right, I can't just solve for x by moving stuff over and solving for x because I have an x squared. So I have to use the quadratic formula. So what I'm going to do, let me get this stuff out of the way. I'm going to do this over here. So I'm looking for x, and that's what the quadratic formula finds, right? It allows me to find the x value. So negative 0.1 plus or minus 0.1 squared. So all of that over 2 times 0.0003. Okay, so go ahead, use your calculator on this one. All right. Okay, so again, the reason why I know this is plus is because I have 1, 2 negatives. So even number of negatives makes that plus. So under the radical, I have 0.0388. So then I'm just going to use my calculator. So with the quadratic formula, it's just the best way to do it is write it out, get all the value underneath the radical. So you have one value underneath that radical. Then it's just a matter of plugging it into your calculator. So negative 0.1 plus the square root of 0.0388, and then hit enter, divided by 0.0006. So when I do the plus version, I get 161.63. When I do the negative version, I get a negative. It doesn't look right. Hang on. There it is. Thank you, Orlin. Negative 494 point whatever it was, blah, blah, blah. All right, well, obviously, we are looking between 0 and whatever x is, right? So that means that's out. That's an extraneous answer. The negative isn't going to work because we're only going between 0 and whatever the x is. So with the x, we're going to round this to a whole number. So our x is going to be 162. Okay? And so make sure you look if you have to do this in my math lab, make sure you look. It'll tell you what to round it to. And in this case, it said round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so we found our x. So now we can do our area between the curves. So 0 to 162, and we are doing the price, 49, minus the function. And using parentheses is going to be really super important, because if I don't put this parenthesis in here, do you see the difference? This is just 49 minus 25. The minute I put parentheses, it's 49 minus this whole trinomial. So that means that negative gets pushed through all three terms. So if I don't change those signs, then my answer is going to be very, very wrong. Okay, so again, I'm still got to find the antiderivative. And I get 49 minus 25 is 24, negative 0.1x, negative 0.0003x squared. So we're going to find the antiderivative of that. All right, so here we go. Whole number, adding an x. Here, adding 1, divide by 2, adding 1, divide by 3. Okay, so I get 24x, and then 0.1 divided in half is 0.05x squared, minus 0.0003 divided by 3 is 0.0001 x cubed, and then I'm going to evaluate. Get that answer, and then plugging 0 in, I'm going to get 0. Okay, all right, so all we got to do is just that top one. So this is all right. And you guys should be doing this with me to check my numbers. So I'm rounding 6472 to 65. Everyone agree? Okay, so what this means is my producer surplus is $2,150.65, which means this is basically my profit. So this is money that I was actually able to get because the consumers were really hoping to pay less, but they were willing to pay the $49. Okay, so that's that area under the curve. So that's, again, it's a cumulative amount. It's all the consumers that were willing to pay or were hoping to pay less, but had to pay more, okay, for their product. So a great example of this, and you guys are, I'm sure you're sick of hearing me bash Apple iPhones, but Apple has a great marketing program. Like, they know how to reel you in. And so there's lots and lots and lots of people that buy Apple products, iPhones, etc., that they show up the very first day a new product comes out and pays top dollar. And then there's the other part of Apple people that will wait 1-2 months and they're going to pay less. So the difference between people that have paid less and people that wanted it the first day, that's all profit. That's all money that's that producer surplus. Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay. So what we're going to do is now you guys are going to practice. All right. So we're going to go through each one of these and you're going to do it. And then in the chat, you're going to give me your answer and then we're going to check your work. So I'm going to show you this first one only because we're looking at a different value. So remember, so I'm going to change this. So this is X and this is P. Yeah, I really need to go back in and change all these because that drives me nuts, all these different variables. Okay, so this time they give us X. So we have this. They give us the demand function. So we have this. What I need is the price. Okay, so now we're flipping it on you a little bit. Before you were given the price, you had to find X. Now you're given the X, you have to find the price. And you can't move forward until you have that price, right? Because if I set this up, I have 0 to 80, I have my function, but I don't have my price to subtract off. So I got to find it. So the way you find it is you take your X and you literally plug it in. Because remember, the demand function, this is the price demand. This is the price based on the demand. So all you're going to do is plug in that X value, and this will give you your price. So 1100 minus 800 is 300. So now we're good to go. Oops. So there's your price. Okay. All right. So now go from there. And then once you're done, use your calculator. Once you're done evaluating, then I want you to put it in the chat, what your answer is, and then we'll check it. And please don't hesitate to ask if you're getting stuck on something. So just to keep you moving forward, let's see how you're doing so far. Take a look, make sure that yours matches. And as you get your answer, go ahead and put it in the chat. Are you getting there? Okay, so we have a couple different answers. Okay. Okay, so there's lots of 32s in here. All right, so here we go. So we go, added our x to the 800, added 1 divided by 2, so we get negative 5x squared. So we're going to add in or multiply by 80, and then 80 squared. So let's see. So 800 times 80, that's 64 with 3 zeros. And then 80 squared times 5 is negative 32,000. So it's 32,000. Good. Okay, so what that means is that let me get this out of the way, that the demand or the consumer surplus, so they're willing to pay whatever it was, $300, right? They're willing to pay $300. No, sorry. They're willing to pay more, but they only have to pay 300. So they have saved the consumers $32,000. And as they, as a like an electric company, that's a huge marketing skill to be able to say, hey, look, we love our consumers so much, we've saved you $32,000. And so people are more apt to be loyal to that company. Good. Okay, next one. Oh, okay. Got it, Adam. Yep, those zeros, they catch you. The ones that catch me is when it's like 0.0003, one of those kind, and I always miss a zero every single time. Okay, here we go. Find the consumer surplus at a price level of $8. I think we already did this one. Yes, we already did this one. This one was on our document. Okay, here we go. For the supply function, 0.09 x squared, and demand level of x equals 200, find the producer surplus. So now, here's our x. Now it's the price minus the supply function. Okay, so again, what do we have? We have our x. We don't have our p. We have our supply function. So now we have to find our p first. Now we have to find our price. Okay, so we're going to plug our 200 right into where x is. So 0.09 times 200 squared is 3,600. Okay, so now we're good to go. We can take out our P, plug in our 3,600, and now we're good to go. Okay, now with this one, if you notice, we're only subtracting off a monomial. So there's no simplifying, right? I don't have to worry about pushing that negative through because it's already there. So now we're set, we're good to go. So now go ahead, find the antiderivative, and then evaluate between 0 and 200. And then put your answer in chat again. Good. Okay, so 480,000, let's make sure. So we have 3,600 times 200 minus 0.03 times 200 cubed. So this was 72 with 4 zeros, so 720,000. And 200 cubed times 0.03. Oops. Is 240. So that is 480,000. Very good. Okay, so again, as a marketing tool, you can use it as a marketing tool, but with producer surplus, this is actual tangible money because they paid more even though they wanted to pay less. So that's that idea of a profit. So the producer surplus is tangible, where the consumer surplus is just an idea. Good. Okay. All right, let's try one more, and then actually there's one, not this one, sorry. There's one on the last, this one. So this one's directly from my math lab. And so I wanted to walk you through it because it doesn't give you a whole lot of information. So remember when we were talking about the, so here's our supply function. Here is our demand function. And here is the price. Here is the number of products, right? So what we're looking for is the equilibrium, right? We're looking for the equilibrium price. So what we're looking for is this value right here. So that's where your supply equals the demand, right? This is our equilibrium. So that's what this one is talking about. So the very first thing we have to do is we have to be able to find our price. And then from there, we're going to be able to find the consumers and the producer surplus. So when it says at the equilibrium level, that means we're finding this equilibrium price right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our demand function, we're going to set it to equal our supply function. Okay, and again, these are both prices, right? These are both the prices. One is based on demand, the other one is based on supply. So where those two equal out, where they intersect is when you set them to equal. So we're going to, let's see, we're going to subtract our 0.04x, and we get a negative 0.08x. And then we're going to subtract our 37 equals a negative 24. So 24 divided by 0.08 is 300. So x equals 300. Okay, so what we're able to find is we found the x value. Right now we know, so when we're setting these up, if we're looking for consumers or producers, we know it's going to go from 0 to 300 on both of these. So we get to use the same values for both. All right, now I have the x. Now I can plug the x back into either function, either price function, and get my price, because I don't have that. All I have are the two functions. So now I have to plug this back into either one, and I'll show you that you'll get the same exact value. It doesn't matter which one we plug it in, because it's equal. We're finding out where is it the exact same value, which point is it at the exact same value. So if I do 37 minus 0.04 times 300, I get 25 here. If I plug it into the other one, 13 plus 0.04 times 300, I get 25 here. So my price is 25 for either one, because it's equal, right? It's the same thing for both functions. So now with consumer surplus, now I have all the information. So remember, it's the function, so the demand function, minus the price. For producer surplus, it's the price minus the function. So the price minus the function. And remember, when you're subtracting off a binomial or a trinomial, you need to push that negative through both. Okay. And now you can find the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. So this is the consumers. So this becomes 37 minus 25, that is 12. Okay, so I'm just simplifying. And now I'm going to find the antiderivative. So it ends up being 12x minus 0.02x squared, and then I'm going to evaluate it. So go ahead and do that one. And then we'll do the producers one in a sec. So go ahead and get the answer for that one. So this one, and this one is from my math lab. So you're going to see one just like this. So you're going to find the x value first, and then plug the x value into either function, and then you have all the information you need to be able to find the consumers and the producer surplus. Good, George. Right, so consumer surplus, you got 1,800. Right, now you'll find the producer surplus. So all the same values, except for now we're doing the price minus the function. So 25 minus 13 is 12, and minus, because remember, we're pushing that negative through both. So one little negative will really throw it. Now, hopefully you notice this, right? The 12 minus 0.04x is 12 minus 0.04x. They're exactly the same. So your work is done. Right? It's exactly the same thing. So 12 times 300 minus 0.02 times 300 squared gives you 1,800. And that is your equilibrium level or equilibrium value. So consumers save $1,800, producers make $1,800, and that's that equilibrium level. Okay, so any questions at all? Did I go too fast? With both Monday's assignment and today's assignment, you have to really keep in mind that you're finding area between two curves. And it's always got to be the upper curve minus the lower curve. Now, one last thing, if you don't have any questions on this, one last thing that I wanted to show you is when you're doing your homework for Mondays for the area between the two curves, use Desmos. It really, really helps. Okay, because you're gonna find one, I think, let me see if I can, let's see, no, it's minus, I think it's a minus. And I can't remember what the other one was. I think it was y equals, oh, it was y equals 0. Okay, so the reason why I want you to use Desmos is because on the document that I did in class, I always set it up the upper curve minus the lower curve. But in my math lab, it's asking you, it doesn't tell you which one is which. And in this case, this one right here, this is one that you're going to see in your My Math Lab. What you're going to do is you're going to find the area, and it's asking you to find the area between, I believe it was, oh boy, I think it was like from -1 to 3. I think that's what it was. And so between the two curves. So with this side, you have your y equals 0 is the upper, the lower is the quadratic. But then over here, the upper is the quadratic, right? And the lower is the, I'll do it to 2. We'll do it to 2, and that, then you can see it. The lower is the y equals 0. So you have to break this up. So remember, you can use Desmos for this one. It does help. Then you can actually click on it, and it'll tell you where to start and stop. Okay, so on this one, the way you would set this up is you would have two different functions. The first one would be from -1, what was it? -1 point, darn it, I gotta get out of here. -1.225. And it'll be a whole number down here. This just got shifted over to where I didn't want it to be, but it would be -1.225 to +1.225. And so you would do the 0 minus 2x squared minus 3. That's for this part, right? Because the 0 is above, this curve is below. And then from this point, the 1.225 to 2, it's the curve minus 0. So on some of them, you have to break it up. And then you have to be able to see, okay, which one is on top, which one is on bottom. And then when you add these two, you will get the area of the between the curves. Okay, so that one's a little more complicated than I showed you in class. Most of them are just like the ones we did in class, but there was this one that you had to look at the curves and go, okay, I need to separate it out. Okay, and these will be whole numbers. When you do it, I believe it's like between -1 and 1, and then from 1 to 3 is the one that I helped a student with. Okay. All right, so if you have no questions, you guys are good. Then I will see you on Tuesday, and we will start the review for the final. Have a good weekend.
Bye, Miss. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, Miss. Thank you.